The day they fired him, they thought they had destroyed a desperate single father. They laughed until he picked up his phone and calmly whispered just 6 words. One phone call, and every person who betrayed him wished they had never met him. But what nobody knew was who this father really was. Hello, my friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments which country you are watching from. Every morning, Daniel woke up before sunrise, not because he wanted to, because his 7-year-old son depended on him. Breakfast, school, medicine, bills, every dollar mattered. Daniel never complained. For 12 years he worked at Harrison Global Logistics, always first to arrive, always the last to leave. He trained new employees, solved impossible problems, saved contracts worth millions. Yet his name was never mentioned during celebrations. His reward? More work, more pressure, less appreciation. Still, he stayed, because quitting was never an option. His son needed stability. Then everything changed. One Monday morning, an email appeared. Mandatory executive meeting. Everyone entered the conference room. The CEO smiled. Too much. Something felt wrong. A presentation appeared on the giant screen. Corporate restructuring. Employees exchanged nervous looks. Daniel remained silent. He noticed something strange. Several executives avoided eye contact, almost as if they already knew what was about to happen. Minutes later, the HR director stood up. "We appreciate your years of service." Daniel's heart sank. "But today will be your last day." Silence. The room froze. His co-workers stared at the table. Nobody defended him, not one person. The security guard appeared before Daniel even stood up, as if they feared him or as if someone wanted to humiliate him publicly. Daniel calmly packed his family photo, his coffee mug, his notebook, nothing else. As he walked toward the exit, he overheard laughter behind the conference room door. One voice whispered, "Without him, the acquisition will be much easier." Acquisition? What acquisition? Nobody had mentioned any acquisition. Daniel paused. For the first time, he realized his dismissal wasn't about budget cuts. It was part of something much bigger. Outside the building, rain soaked his suit. His phone vibrated. A message. Unknown number. Only 5 words. "Call me before sunset. Urgent." Daniel looked at the number. His expression changed instantly. He hadn't seen that name in nearly 15 years. Daniel stood frozen in the rain. His thumb hovered over the screen. The sender's name made no sense. Michael Whitmore. 15 years ago, Michael had disappeared without a trace. Back then, he had been Daniel's mentor, the man who taught him everything about logistics, negotiations, and power. Everyone believed Michael had retired overseas. Others whispered darker rumors. No one ever knew the truth. Daniel took a slow breath. Then he made the call. The line connected instantly. "I knew you'd call." Michael's voice sounded older, but just as calm. "I heard what happened." Daniel frowned. "How?" A brief silence. Then, "Because I never stopped watching that company." Daniel's heartbeat quickened. "What do you mean?" Michael sighed. "They didn't fire you because you failed. They fired you because you were the only person who could stop them. Daniel looked back at the towering glass building. Nothing made sense anymore. Stop who? The people who were about to steal an entire company. Daniel's eyes widened. Michael continued, "For years, Harrison Global wasn't owned by the people sitting in those executive offices. It belonged to investors, honest investors. But someone has been secretly buying their shares through fake companies." Daniel suddenly remembered the word he had overheard, acquisition. So it was real. But why fire me? Michael answered immediately. Because every major shipment, every financial approval, every confidential contract passed through your department. You knew too much without realizing it. Daniel felt chills. He had never cared about corporate politics. He only did his job. Yet, somehow, that had made him dangerous. Michael lowered his voice. "I need you to check something." "What?" "The notebook you took home." Daniel opened the worn leather notebook from his box. Between 2 pages, a folded document slipped onto the passenger seat of his old car. He had never seen it before. Someone had hidden it there. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. Rows of numbers, container IDs, dates, foreign bank references, and one signature, the CEO's. Daniel stared at the final page. At the bottom, one shipment was circled in red. Tomorrow, midnight. Michael spoke before Daniel could ask. If that shipment leaves the port, everything will be over. Daniel whispered, "What exactly is inside those containers?" Michael paused, long enough to make Daniel uneasy. Finally, he answered with only 4 words, "Evidence worth billions." Before Daniel could speak again, the call suddenly disconnected. At the exact same moment, a black SUV slowly stopped across the street. Its headlights remained fixed on Daniel. The driver's door opened. A man in a black suit stepped out, holding a sealed envelope. Without saying a single word, he handed it to Daniel, turned around, and disappeared into the night. Daniel looked at the envelope. On the front, only one sentence was written: "Trust no one inside Harrison." Part 3. Daniel locked the car doors. His breathing slowed. The envelope felt heavier than paper. Inside, there was no letter, only a small access card, silver, no company logo, just a single address, an abandoned warehouse near the old shipping docks, and a handwritten note, 11:30 p.m., come alone. Daniel almost threw it away. It could be a trap. But another thought refused to leave his mind. If they had gone this far to remove him, they were hiding something far bigger than a simple business deal. That evening, Daniel tucked his son into bed. He smiled, pretended everything was normal. But the moment the bedroom door closed, his smile disappeared. He looked at the family photo on the wall. "I'll fix this." Then he left. The warehouse was silent, too silent. The huge metal doors opened automatically. Inside, only one light was on. Michael stepped out of the shadows. Older, grayer, but his eyes were exactly the same. Sharp, focused. "I was hoping you'd come." Daniel didn't waste time. "What is all this?" Michael placed a thick folder on the table. It began 3 years ago. He opened the first page. Hundreds of documents, secret contracts, offshore companies, fake suppliers, forged invoices. Every page revealed another layer of deception. Daniel's face turned pale. The board. Michael nodded. Most of them are involved. They've been draining the company for years. But that's not the worst part. He turned another page. There was Daniel's own signature on contracts he had never signed. His heart stopped. That's impossible. It is. They copied your digital identity. If the fraud is discovered now, you'll be blamed. Daniel stared in disbelief. Everything suddenly made sense. The sudden dismissal, the public humiliation, the security escort. They weren't pushing him out. They were preparing a scapegoat. Michael slid another document across the table. This is why they panicked. It was a court filing, sealed, already approved. A federal investigation, scheduled to begin in less than 48 hours. Daniel looked up. So they need someone to blame before investigators arrive. Michael smiled slightly. Exactly. And they chose the honest employee. Daniel clenched his fists. For the first time, he wasn't afraid. He was angry. Not because they fired him, because they tried to destroy his son's future. Michael leaned closer. You asked why I disappeared 15 years ago. Daniel nodded. I wasn't fired. I resigned because I discovered the same people. I've spent 15 years collecting evidence. Daniel frowned. If you already have proof, why didn't you expose them? Michael looked directly into Daniel's eyes. Because one final piece was missing. Daniel whispered, What piece? Michael answered calmly, You. Before Daniel could respond, the warehouse lights suddenly went out. Darkness, complete silence. Then, several red laser dots appeared on the walls. Someone else had found them, and they were no longer alone. The red laser dots moved slowly. 1, then 5, then 12. Daniel's pulse raced. Someone was surrounding the warehouse. Michael didn't panic. Instead, he smiled. Right on time. Daniel stared at him. You're smiling? Michael pressed a small button hidden beneath the metal table. A loud metallic click echoed through the building. Then, every light switched back on. But the people holding the laser sights weren't criminals. They were federal agents, heavily armed. Raise your hands where we can see them, voices thundered across the warehouse. Within seconds, the warehouse doors burst open. Several executives from Harrison Global were dragged inside in handcuffs, including the CEO. Daniel froze. How? Michael calmly replied, They've been following us since you left your apartment. I wanted them to believe they were walking into their own victory. The CEO glared at Daniel. You planned this. Daniel shook his head. No, you planned it the day you chose an honest employee as your scapegoat. An agent placed dozens of boxes onto the table. Each contained documents, hard drives, financial records, and recordings of secret meetings. The evidence was overwhelming. The CEO's confidence vanished. For the first time, he looked afraid. Days later, news channels across the country carried the same headline: Largest corporate fraud scheme exposed. Billions of dollars in stolen assets were recovered. Dozens of executives were arrested. Several board members resigned before charges could even be filed. Investigators publicly confirmed that Daniel had been complete. A week later, Daniel received another call, this time from the company's largest group of investors. One elderly investor spoke first. "We owe you an apology." Another added, "You protected this company even after it betrayed you." Then came an unexpected question. "Would you accept the position of Chief Executive Officer?" Daniel remained silent. Months earlier, he had walked out carrying a cardboard box. Now, they wanted him to lead the entire company. He smiled. "I'll accept, but only under one condition. No employee will ever again be humiliated the way I was." The investors agreed immediately. On his first day as CEO, the employees gathered in the same conference room where he had once been fired. No security guards, no fear, no fake smiles. Daniel looked around the room, then picked up the phone on the conference table. He dialed one number. The room became silent. When the call connected, he spoke the 6 words that would be remembered forever. "Fire every one of them, effective immediately." Not out of revenge, not out of anger, but because every executive involved had already been convicted. Justice had simply arrived. That evening, Daniel picked up his son from school. The little boy ran into his father's arms. "Dad, did you get your job back?" Daniel smiled warmly. "No, buddy. I got something much better." He looked toward the city skyline. Sometimes, losing everything is exactly what allows you to uncover the truth. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a life they can never take.